We just pray on behalf of our people, Yisrael, O Most High, that you would cause us to stand in these last days. Give us strength, O Yehovah. Pour the Ruach HaKodesh upon us, O Yah. Pour out the latter rain, O Most High. Show mercy unto us. Deliver us, O Yehovah. Open the gates of heaven unto our prayer. Yehovah, receive our prayer. O Yah, receive our prayer.
So let's read back again what warning Yehovah would give us if we turned away from him. Let's go to Jeremiah 17:4.
Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 4. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not.
So he would cause us to serve our enemies in the land we did not know. And as we have served our enemies here, every invention, every new technology, every innovation that we have created has been taken from us violently, for the violent take it by force. So sometimes they would use physical force, which, by their guns, by their murder, lynchings. Sometimes they would use their economic force. And sometimes they use force of law. So now we're going to see what a lot of our ancestors here in this country, black men and women, have innovated and invented that was taken from them by force. So we're now going to look at this presentation on black inventors.
African Americans have long been acknowledged for their creativity and genius in theater, dance, music, art, and literature. But there's another kind of creative contribution African Americans have made, and that's the art of invention. From the moment you turn a doorknob, flick an on-off switch, start your engine, stop for a traffic light, take an elevator, watch a missile launch, or talk on your cellular phone, you've come into contact with an invention or innovation created by an African American. Since records of inventors' race weren't kept when the U.S. Patent Office was established in 1790, we may never know exactly how many patents were issued to African Americans. Now, probably the person most responsible.
So, what did he just say?
Because
since they didn't keep the race of the people back then when it first started, that we may never know how many inventions were patented to African Americans.
So when I was growing up, my father had a book of African American inventors, and the book was very thick, and it had like literally hundreds of black inventors, and that's not even all of them, because a lot of them, they didn't even keep track of it. If it was us who did it, they wouldn't even acknowledge us. So it says again that because Jeremiah, let's read that again, Jeremiah 17.
17 and 4. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage.
Thou shalt discontinue from thine heritage.
That I
So
gave thee.
the heritage of that we have even here, of what we invent and create, we discontinue from it. They took it from us. They won't even give us credit for the inventions that we have done before such a period of time. And even afterwards, they tried to steal our inventions, even down to this day.
And I will...
No, we're good.
Oh, okay.
For gathering information on early black inventors was Henry E. Baker, an assistant U.S. patent officer and graduate of Harvard Law School. Baker dedicated his life to uncovering and publicizing the contributions of black inventors. Under the auspices of the U.S. Patent Office, Baker sent out letters to lawyers throughout the country asking them to identify any black inventors they may have filed patent papers for. In 1913, patent lawyer B.J. Nolan of Chattanooga, Tennessee wrote, "I never knew a Negro to even suggest an idea, much less try to patent one. And I've dealt with them Negroes all my life."
Pause it.
Baker didn't let letters like that discourage him.
So we see that it was a hateful Edomite who's in charge of keeping records for the patent. He denied the fact that we even invented anything. So there we go, discontinuing from our heritage that Yahweh has given us because of our disobedience. And our main disobedience is Christianity. And again, it teaches us black self-hatred. So all this technology and innovation that has been created by our fathers and our mothers has gone undocumented, and then as a result, our people begin to hate themselves and have no self-worth, thinking we have never contributed to society, that we haven't made any significant contributions to the world other than slavery. And that's how Christianity keeps us in that same state of mind. Go ahead.
By the time of his death, his work produced 4 massive volumes and uncovered some remarkable inventions patented by black men and women. In 18th century America, one black man of inventive genius made a name for himself, a tobacco farmer named Benjamin Banneker. He resembled Benjamin Franklin in stature, and he was one of the country's most brilliant mathematicians. Inspired by the theories of Copernicus, Banneker became a self-taught astronomer at age 60. In 1754, at the age of 24, Banneker made a clock entirely out of wood, which remained accurate for nearly 40 years. He was one of the surveyed...
What did they say Banneker did?
Made a clock that remained accurate for more than 40 years.
Out of wood.
Out of wood. So he did this at a time where blacks were not even allowed to read and to write. And he self-taught himself astronomy, the science of the stars, which a lot of people are still trying to figure out to this day. He had accurate interpretation of the sun, moon, and stars and the heavenly bodies, which actually contain many prophecies in them when you know how to read it. So this is the heritage that we come from that was stolen from us, and this knowledge has been hidden from most of our children. So this whole I have a dream speech and this whole Christianity teaches us to deny and ignore the contributions of black people. And the contribution, the most significant of our black Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach. To ignore who he is to ignore our own selves. And then we begin to hate ourselves as a people.
Is in the planning of Washington, D.C., and a scientific genius. With borrowed books and instruments, Banneker taught himself the fundamentals of astronomy, keeping a journal of his calculations. Besides predicting the weather and seasons, Banneker used his almanac to extol the achievements of blacks beyond himself. When he included a poem written by the renowned poet Phyllis Wheatley, he wrote, "Africans and their descendants are capable of attaining a degree of eminence in the liberal sciences. Benjamin is not the only proof." Wheatley's poem perhaps best echoed their feelings about the injustices of human bondage.
Should you wonder from whence my love of freedom sprung? I young and lied by a seeming cruel fate, was snatched from Africa, fancy happy seat. What pains excruciating must molest, what what sorrows labor in my parents' breast. Steeled was that, should and by no misery moved, that from a father sees this babe beloved. Such my case. And can I then but pray, others may never feel tyrannic sway.
Just as Banneker loved the stars.
Go back to that last one. Yeah.
Banneker loved the stars.
Steeled was that, should and by no misery moved, that from a father sees this babe beloved. Such my case. And can I then but pray, others may never feel
the violence taken by
Force.
So what do we see here?
Force.
Put it over there. What do you see? You see the violent? Taking the woman away by force. Okay? And this is all, what religion are all the people who's doing this?
Christians.
These are Edomite Christians. Taking our kingdom away from us by force through the use of Christianity. So the very men, the black men, whoever the black men are around you, because of Christianity and being told to turn the other cheek and let your enemy love your enemy, misconstruing those scriptures, they would see this woman being taken by force violently, and they would stand by and do and say nothing. And that's Christianity. And again, that teaches and promotes black self-hate, because then that woman will grow to resent and hate black men because they saw these white men doing this and they didn't stand up for her. So she'll give birth to generations of children who hate themselves and hate each other. And she, if her heart is not right, she'll grow up to resent black men. And the black men who stand near will hate themselves for being powerless and regretting that they didn't stop this from happening. And this is the result of Christianity.
Just as Banneker loved the stars, James Forten of Philadelphia loved the sea. One of the original abolitionist leaders, Forten invented a device around 1800 that aided in the control of sails on ships. He amassed a fortune, built his own sail factory, and worked on the Underground Railroad helping slaves to escape. There's an African proverb that says, "As the wound inflames the finger, so thought inflames the mind." And despite their circumstances, slaves created a number of inventions before the Civil War. Until they were considered citizens, however, African American inventors were ignored, prohibited from securing patents, or slave owners took credit for their discoveries.
Pause it. What did he just say?
Slave owners took credit for their discoveries. And they were ignored.
And they were ignored, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28, 32.
Deuteronomy 28, starting at verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand.
Just like we saw that woman being taken captive, and there was no might in her hand to get set free. Go ahead.
The fruit of thy land,
fruit of thy land,
and all thy labors.
All thy labors, meaning
everything that you work for.
All their inventions. So we're seeing all their inventions, all their labors, everything they work for being taken from them. Read it again, 33.
The fruit of thy hand and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up,
and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. So Christianity teaches us not even to look at the Old Testament. So this is in the Old Testament. This is in the Old Covenant. Christianity tells you this is not important. Christianity cuts you off from your heritage. If you don't know this is in the Bible, then you will forever remain a slave. thank Yah for his mercy in revealing these scriptures to his people in these latter times, in these last days. Because if we did not know these scriptures, we would still be in bondage today. It's only through the grace of Yahuwah and his son Yehoshua that has set us free mentally, that we can be set free spiritually and then eventually physically. So a nation that we know not would steal all of our patents, all of our inventions, all of our technology, all of our innovations, and claim it for their own. And we would be oppressed and crushed always. Let's go back now. So we see that these Edomites stole our inventions, our innovations, and our technologies. And once they stole it, Christianity told us just to keep on loving them and trying to integrate with these same people.
It was almost the case of Benjamin Montgomery of Virginia, who invented a propeller specifically designed for river steamboats. Montgomery was owned by Joseph Davis, brother of Jefferson Davis, the future president of the Confederacy. Now, when the brothers tried to patent Montgomery's propeller, Attorney General Jeremiah S. Black enacted a decision in 1858 that prohibited owners from doing so. So, as a result, any slave invention during the next 12 years went undocumented. Before the Civil War, a free black man named Norbert Rilot from New Orleans revolutionized the sugar industry in a bittersweet story. Born on a plantation and educated as an engineer in Paris, Rilot gave the world its biggest economic sugar fix. Making sugar by the slow, dangerous kettle method inspired Rilot to find a better way. And on August 26, 1843, he received his first patent for his sugar refining process, or the multiple effect vacuum evaporator, which turns sugar juice into a fine grade of white sugar crystals. Rilot became a wealthy and influential man in New Orleans, but was still subjected to oppressive race laws. When he was told he'd have to carry a pass to move about the city, Rilot decided to leave America forever and return to France. France's gain was surely America's loss. Industrial growth in America was tremendous, and both black and white inventors were responsible. By 1870, the patent restraints for blacks had been lifted and signaled an explosion of inventions to come. One of those inventions was from Jan Metzeliger, a black immigrant from New Guinea who settled in Lynn, Massachusetts, the center of the shoemaking industry. Now, his invention revolutionized the shoe manufacturing industry and created thousands of jobs. Prior to Metzeliger's invention, connecting the leather uppers to the soles of the shoes was done by hand, a process called lasting. He wanted to make shoes affordable for everyone, and after working secretly at night for 10 years, Metzeliger created a lasting machine that could turn out a complete shoe. His drawings, however, were so complex, the U.S. Patent Office couldn't believe the machine worked.
Pause it.
So an official.
What was this man's invention? Matt Zellinger?
The lasting machine.
Lasting machine.
Mm-hmm. And because of his work, shoes can now be mass produced at a time when shoes had to be hand sewn and hand stitched. So we have an Israelite who innovated this stuff, but how many black people own Payless shoes, Foot Locker, what's DSW? Right? Is that a shoe store? What's some more?
Shoe
Carnival. We don't even own the thrift shoe store. we don't own any of that because we have hated ourselves, and because of our self-hate by hating Yehoshua, these enemies can now come in and take the kingdom by force. So they take the kingdom of heaven by force, and they even take this kingdom from us by force. So everything that we work to achieve in this kingdom is taken by force. So this brother, again, who's quote-unquote uneducated, creates complex drawings of machinery to mass-produce shoes, yet today we own almost no shoe stores. We produce and manufacture nothing. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28:47.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 47. Because thou servest not Jehovah thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things,
therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Jehovah shall send against thee. So that means whoever we enslave to are who? They're our enemies. They are our enemies. Yet Christianity teaches us that that's our God. Christianity teaches us that Esau is our God. But Jehovah says they're our enemy. So this Christian pastor says it doesn't matter what Jehovah will look like. So if you don't know who Jehovah will look like, then you think your enemy is God. And so that's why they keep going back and they're so happy to serve Esau over and over and over and over again, because that's their God and they're happy to serve their God. You're going to serve God one way or another, whether your God is Jehovah or if your God is Satan. You're going to serve one or the other. I choose to serve Yehoshua. As for me and my house, we're going to serve Jehovah. So Christians who still choose to be in this darkness, they're going to serve Esau and Satan until the end. Read.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Jehovah shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
Until when?
He have destroyed
thee. Until he destroyed thee. Let's go to the book of Exodus. Let's go to Exodus 21. See, we're brought here in bondage, right? And Jehovah, we're going to serve a master one way or the other. Who our master is going to be depends on our faith or our obedience or our willingness to accept Yehoshua and the law, statutes, and commandments written in these scriptures. So let's read this scripture. Let's go to Exodus 21 and let's start at 1.
Exodus chapter 21, starting in verse 1. Now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. If thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing.
So people say God is cruel. The God of our Bible is evil because he allows slavery or servitude in the Bible. How long can someone be your servant in the Bible?
6 years.
Okay. So America has kept our people here in bondage how many years?
400.
400. But let's keep reading.
3. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife should go out with him. If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he should go out by himself.
All right. So if a man is a slave or a servant, and usually what causes a man to be a slave or a servant?
They have low money?
Not so much that. In a sense, yes. But it's something even more than that.
To be what?
It's his sins. A man's sins or his disobedience or his crimes cause him to be a servant. Scripture says if a man robs something, how much is he supposed to pay back?
4 times.
4 times over, right? Mm-hmm. So if a man robs, let's say $100,000, how much is he supposed to pay back?
$400,000.
$400,000. What happens if that person can't pay back the debt?
He needs to work for it.
He goes into servitude, slavery, prison, or even in this case of a servant, either one.
Community service.
Right. So this is the case here. This is usually what gets a person in this situation in the first place. His sins. And that's righteous judgment. But how long is he supposed to work before he's set free?
6 years.
So let's see what happens after that.
5.
And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him unto the judges, he shall also bring him to the door or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. So, if somebody is a slave and they don't want to get set free, they're supposed to take their ear and nail it to the doorpost of that house. I want to be set free. I don't want to be nailed to America. I don't want my ear and my obedience. What does that mean, your ear nailed to the house? You have to now be obedient to that household, and you're nailed to it. And that's what Christianity does to our people. It takes the children of Israel and tells them, I love my slave master. I don't care what they do. I don't care if they rape my wife, if they kill my children. Nail my ear to the door of America. I have a dream. Nail my ear to the door. I want to be obedient for this forever. I don't want my freedom. I want to be a coon. But God gives them that opportunity. Hey, if you want to coon, you're going to serve a master one way or another. Do you want to stay in bondage, or do you want to get set free? Christianity teaches black people to hate themselves and to nail their ear to the doorpost of America and of the Christian church. Meanwhile, there's only a certain time we're supposed to be in bondage. After that, it's Jubilee. We're set free. It's time for those who want to be set free to separate from these coons and these Christian pastors, these Christian liars, and these lying Edomites. If they want to stay, then let them nail their ear to it. Those who choose to serve Jehovah, you turn your ear to him. Because this, why is it to the door?
Well,
Is it? Go ahead.
So that's the way you go out to have your freedom?
That's good. That's right. That's where, when it's time for you to leave that house, you got to go through that door. But now you're nailing yourself to the door and saying, I'm not going anywhere. Meanwhile, Yahushua is the door. We're supposed to be joined to him. But they want to join themselves to the door or the gates of Babylon, when he is the way, the truth, and the life, and he is the door to the sheep. We supposed to connect ourselves and nail ourselves or join ourselves unto him. That's what Levi or Lewi means, the tribe of Lewi. To nail yourself or join yourself to the Messiah, to Reuben. The first, behold, the son, Simeon, the obedient one, the heir, and then Levi or the nail, nailing yourself to the firstborn son. That's what it means when you read the 12 tribes of Israel. Nailing your ear to the son, the king of Judah. And that's what Yahushua did for his father on Golgotha at the crucifixion. He was what? He was nailed to what?
a cross.
True.
To a cross. What's on the doorpost? What's on the door? You have two posts, right? Mm-hmm. But Yahushua nailed himself to the door of his father's house. Okay, he was nailed, his hands and his feet was nailed to it. He wasn't going nowhere. And his ears was already obedient. So his hands and his feet was also nailed to a door. But they tell us to forget the Old Testament. So how could we ever know this stuff? I don't want to stay here I don't want me and my wife and my children, my sisters and their children nailed to the door of Babylon, nailed to the house of Satan. That's what Christianity teaches us. And that's what we need to forget.
And I'm just thinking how most times when things are nailed, it's long lasting, it's close to permanent. I mean, you can get the other end of the hammer and undo it, but if you're using a nail, that's like permanent, you being permanently nailed to Satan.
Yeah, let's read that again.
Starting at verse 2 and verse 1.
No, it says
verse where are we? 6.
6, yeah.
Then his master shall bring him unto the judges.
Let's start at 5.
Okay, 5. Exodus chapter 21, verse 5. And if the servant shall plainly say,
I love my master. Who is our master right now? Said our enemies would be our masters. We would be served. We would serve our enemies. So the person you serve is your master, and our master is our enemy, and our enemy is Esau. So we have Christianity that says, I love my master, or I love Esau, my wife and my children. I will not go out free. That's Christianity. So for those who choose to stay here, just nail yourself to the door. Take your ear and nail it. And those who want freedom, we want our jubilee. Go ahead.
Then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door, or unto the doorpost.
Or unto the doorpost. That's what Yehoshua was nailed to. Doorpost, 2 of them.
And his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever.
Forever. So when he's nailed, it's not being undone. Like you said, when you nailed, it's hard to come out. It ain't even coming out. That's it. When Yehoshua came back, did he still, when he resurrected and came to the apostles, how did his hands look?
He still had the hole.
It's forever.
Mm-hmm. Sister Rhonda just tied it leaves a scar when you remove it, or it leaves you disfigured.
That's right. Yehoshua still got the awl through his hands and his feet. And even when you look and you see the testimonies of people who say they've seen Yehoshua in the spirit, when they describe his hands, they said his hands got holes in them. His feet still got the holes in them. They got the hole in them until we're redeemed. And maybe even past that. Because that's the sacrifice or the blood that was shed for us that keeps us alive. That's continually as a burnt and fragrant offering to his Father. If not for those wounds, we would not be accepted, as that burnt offering would not be a continual burnt offering. So he leaves it open like that because it's a continual, his own body with the burnt brass is a continual offering to the Father. You must burn every offering with what?
Fire.
With fire. That's why his skin is burnt brass. It has to be with fire. We need to be proud that we're black. And especially the dark-skinned brothers and sisters, they need to be proud. If Yehoshua was not as dark-skinned brother, we would have no salvation. There would be no atonement. There would be no sacrifice for our salvation. So to hell with Christianity.
We just pray on behalf of our people, Yisrael, O Most High, that you would cause us to stand in these last days. Give us strength, O Yehovah. Pour the Ruach HaKodesh upon us, O Yah. Pour out the latter rain, O Most High. Show mercy unto us. Deliver us, O Yehovah. Open the gates of heaven unto our prayer. Yehovah, receive our prayer. O God, receive our prayer.